All right. Welcome to another episode of the Digital Recruiter Podcast, the podcast where we share the ins and outs of what it's like to be in the recruiting industry, sales, stories, crazy experiences, sharing what's working, what's not working. I am your host, Clark Willcox, founder of the Digital Recruiter and the Digital Recruiter Talent Group. Today, we are joined by Kendy Elmore, founder of the Medical Sales Lobby Network, former client of the Digital Recruiter program. He helps people get in the medical sales industry, and he's also a medical sales recruiter. He was in sales. He was a rep at Stryker, Right Medical, Mindray. So he has been in it from a sales and recruiting perspective. He is the man when it comes to medical sales and networking, and I'm excited for all of you to hear his story today. Kendy, thanks for being here.
Clark, excited to be here. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Lot to cover, a lot to talk about. You have a really cool kind of, I think, entry point into recruiting and the way you've approached recruiting, kind of building your agency. So I'm excited kind of for you to share. But it starts with the lobby network. And I think I was trying to figure this out when we first spoke. I'm like, all right, kind of what exactly is going on here? But kind of, if you would, just kind of give us the background of what the lobby network is, kind of how it came to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're still figuring out our identity, right? I think that's the exciting thing about building a company is you kind of figure that out along the way, and there's gonna be lots of turns and challenges, and you figure out what works and what doesn't work. But our story is one that started with a medical sales networking idea, right? After being in the industry for over a decade, I always had the idea that something was missing, like an opportunity to bring our industry together. It was very segmented, very siloed. People stayed kind of within their specialty or stayed within their company. And so building a networking organization that brought all those individuals together, right, that fall under the medical sales umbrella for in-person networking events, especially coming out of COVID. I think people more than ever were craving that connection and building those networking opportunities. So we started hosting events in Charleston, South Carolina, where I was based out of, and really just piloted the program to see if it was something other people were interested in. And as that community grew in Charleston, something really unique happened is that individuals and reps in other parts of the country started reaching out, wanting to be a part of it and wanting to build the same community in their local cities. And so we really kind of knew we were onto something as far as the networking piece grew. And then recruiting became a piece of that, right? As the organization grew and the company grew, more reps started to come to us looking for opportunities, and companies organically started noticing us and reaching out looking for reps. We kind of found ourselves in the middle and eventually developed the recruiting arm of the business.
It kind of worked your way into being the middleman, which is agency recruiting. So it's again really cool, right? Building. So a lot of people start like, I'm going to build a recruiting agency, and they go hunt for recs, and you're like, I'm going to build a network and a kind of almost a database, if you will, now, right? To use a recruiting term, I don't think you even knew that you were quite doing that in terms of recruiting, but like that's kind of what you did, right? If it's all relationships and communication, and I think that's such a cool way to kind of build that out. You mentioned kind of the in-person coming out of COVID. You've done a lot of Zoom calls, right? A lot of virtual stuff, but now you have also done a lot of in-person. And I think there's a lot of recruiters last few years that haven't done as much in-person, or they've trained, virtually and not kind of had that camaraderie. What's some of the difference? Like, what do you get more out of being in person than you say maybe just doing something virtually or like a call virtually?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, COVID obviously put us in a virtual world, right? All of a sudden, everybody was on Zoom calls and connecting that way. And I think, nothing can replace shaking somebody's hand, right? And looking them in the eyes and talking to them. I think you can read a person, you can read energy, you can read personality and so many things in person that you can't do over Zoom or over email. And so we really take pride in knowing our candidates, knowing our community. That way, when a client reaches out and says, hey, we're looking for this type of candidate in this city, we really know our people. And so I think there's so much value to that. And also, that's our mission is, right, giving back to this community and building an organization that's purely focused on the medical sales rep, right? How can we build a company to develop opportunities for them to serve that client? That really is our client. So not only do we do the networking, we bring in speakers so that it's a professional development opportunity for them, networking for them. It's just been incredible to see the conversations, relationships that are developed, and friendships that are developed from these networking events. It's really cool.
That's awesome. And I got to imagine, right? Because you're make talking to these candidates, at times maybe training them, giving some advice, helping them kind of see new things, opportunities. So traditionally, when right, when you're recruiting for a client, you got a role in this submittal package, or when you're calling them over, you not only can you just say, hey, this person's done so and so, but like I've met with them. Like you probably have like a reference or someone that's like already can vouch for them. Like you just have that extra touch. Is that make a decent, like a pretty good impact for your clients? Like does that help things move quicker?
Absolutely. I mean, it helps you, like you're saying, when you're submitting to a client, it's one thing to say, hey, I spoke to this rep. Here's the background. Here's kind of what's going on in their life. Another thing to say, hey, I've talked to this guy or girl, and I had a drink with them, and we've spent 30 minutes together. I understand their life. I understand their motivations, I think it's just a whole different ballgame when you've met somebody in person versus just having a phone call with them.
Absolutely. Their favorite karaoke song, all that good stuff, right? Like that's the
Exactly.
difference, when you get the in-person events and have a drink. So that's awesome. And so the other piece to that, right? You were in their shoes. You've been a medical sales rep longer than you were a recruiter, right? Thus far.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
how has that kind of industry knowledge, being in the shoes, how has that helped you, I would say, with clients and candidates?
Yeah, exactly. So it's helped both sides, right? When
Yeah.
talking to clients or candidates on the phone, I think it helps build credibility with them, right? I'm not just a recruiter calling them that's never done the job. It's like, hey, I get what you do. I understand your world. I talked to ortho rep the other day with his running trays around, and had to call me back. It's like, listen, I get it. I did it for 12 years. I know exactly what you're doing. I know the products. I know the companies. So I kind of know the game. On the flip side of the coin, talking to clients, that are looking for reps. I've also been in a role, where we hired junior reps and brought on people when I was in a sales position, so I know what they're looking for, and so helping them find those reps, definitely having that experience is very beneficial.
Absolutely. And you also kind of know when things are fishy, right? On both
Yeah,
sides, right? It's like,
yeah,
hitting quota numbers. I don't know if that sounds right, or like clients where they want to pay this much. It's like, no one's going to take that much in that city, right?
yeah,
Like you're probably able to call out some of the BS on the front end, which that is the key to kind of, I think, making that transition from new to recruiting to being really good and a veteran is like always on that front end. Like how much of that can you filter out, so you're not waiting 8 to 12 weeks, you're like, oh man, like they didn't take the offer or the role went away, like what the heck, right? So like you have, I think, that subject matter expertise being in the role, like you're probably able to kind of call out a lot of stuff too on the front end.
absolutely, absolutely, and helping those clients with that, like, hey, this is what reps are going to need in this area. This is what they're looking for.
Yeah.
I always look at a rec like, hey, if I was going for it, right? If I was applying this position, what are the pros and cons? And then vice versa. Our organization is built on serving the medical sales rep, right? So we build networking events, recruiting opportunities, coaching courses. Everything's built for the rep. So I'm also very selective in the clients we work with, right?
Yeah.
If I wouldn't work for that company, I'm not going to, recommend somebody else to do the same. So being selective on, the opportunities that we really connect our community and our network with is, I think, important as well. So we have that credibility.
Oh, you're putting your name on the line, and
Yeah.
it's a topic I talk about over and over and over again, right? Qualifying good clients, qualifying good jobs, orders they're going to close, and that's really order. That means roles that candidates want. They want to be at, and you feel good about matching them, because if you're not doing that, right, the candidates are going to not want to talk to you again or to your firm, and they're going to kind of go away. And it takes a lot of discipline, right, to say no to a potential client or what looks like a great, an opportunity, 15, 20, $30,000 role. But if you know it's going to be more of a headache, right, it does take that discipline. And I think it's hard sometimes for recruiters and agency owners to just say no to
Yeah.
business, but you've seen the domino effect that could have. And for you, you have to show up at in-person events sometimes, and you'd have to face the music. So you're kind of
Right.
like, no, I don't want to deal with that. Like
Right.
I'm just gonna say no in the front end, because like I gotta look these people in the eye and be like, yeah, I kind of, gave you I led you kind of down a bad interview or bad role or whatever. It's like, no thanks. Like, right, there's some
Yeah.
consequence. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's important for me too, just as an individual who's building a company. Like you said, your name's behind it, and
Yep.
I had the pleasure of calling a candidate yesterday, letting them know they got the job, and hearing the excitement in the voice, like all that, just it means everything to me. And I've got to know in the back of my mind that like I really am doing the best thing for them and putting them in a great position. And so doing that homework on the front end to make sure it really is a great opportunity, great organization, team culture, things like that is important to me. That way, I know I'm doing what's best for our network.
I mean, that's why I've gone off to the start you have, and I think it's not even been a year, like officially for you. So, which is crazy,
Yeah.
but like those are lessons that I've worked with people 10, 15 years that I don't think they fully ingrained those types of lessons and that responsibility, and it makes you're right. Like you hold like it's one of the biggest decisions you can make, right? That new job, the career, right? Beyond who you kind of decide to choose to spend your life around, although that could be a big part of it, right? With the career and the job. I think it's easy to forget that, right? In the rat race of recruiting and calls and submittals and interviews and just trying to get, placement fees and all that stuff. Like it's easy to forget like that these are people, right? Like
Yeah.
this is everything to them in that moment. And, it's important to kind of have that on the front end and kind of really go in with that mindset, which I think a lot of recruiters do, right? To their credit. But I think what's cool about you, like you're like, I'm going to build the systems and I'm going to like meet people. I'm going to build the systems. Like I'm going to do this the right way to give myself more opportunities to make the right matches. Right. And I
Right.
think that's the important. Like you can have like I want to help people, but if you don't really have the systems behind that, it can almost be kind of like a rat race. And like you're just
Absolutely.
like, it's a game of whack a mole and you're always trying to kind of catch up. And I think that's what's pretty cool, right? You kind of knew that going into it. Um, what are what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned? Like, first year in recruiting, coming from medical sales, what are some of those big lessons you've learned?
Yeah, it's a different world, right? Medical sales, like you kind of control your destiny. You are the
Yeah.
one, making the sales calls. It's you kind of doing everything. Here, you're relying on other people, right? And so as I spend more time in this role, and you kind of become the expert now in a new field, a new process. It's really coaching those individuals, right? So when someone is going through the interview process, medical sales is a unique interview process, and there's strategy to it. There's things that you have to do along the way to really win the interview. And win the job. And so it's coaching those candidates
Yeah.
all the way through the process from the beginning to the end on what that's going to look like. Whether it's somebody that's in the industry or maybe a nurse that's transitioning in that's never, gone through that process. So that's been a big thing is just really, how do I prepare my candidates the best so that they can really bring their best foot forward. And then
Absolutely.
also on the client side, right? Really learning what clients are looking for, how to, interact with them, find the candidates they need, and learning the recruiter world, right? As you kind of transitioned, or I transitioned from a rep for 12 years now to a recruiter. It's a new industry. It's still in the medical sales world, but it's a new role you're playing in the process. So really becoming an expert at that process now, so that I can help both sides as best I can.
Absolutely. What? So you mentioned people getting into the industry. What's changed from when you got into the industry, right now, 13 years ago, to now, right? Like, what do you see the difference? Kind of, what advice do you give people looking to transition to medical sales?
Yeah, I mean, and it's unique because we all, whether you've been in the industry for a year, or 10 years, or 20 years, everybody got their start somewhere, right?
Right.
And so, as much as our company is really built for people in the industry, I've always got a soft spot for those people that are trying to get in. I was
Yeah.
a former teacher and athletic coach when I got into the industry, and
Yeah.
it was a challenge. It took me about a year and a half to make that transition. And so, I always have, had a soft spot for people trying to make that challenge. So we've built out coaching courses to really help them. I think the biggest change is probably the internet, right? LinkedIn,
Yeah.
and really knowing how to navigate that process, knowing the right way to reach out to people and find information online
Yeah.
is probably the biggest thing. So we really help people with that.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I don't need to tell you, but like LinkedIn is a game changer.
Yeah.
right? If you have the profile, right, you can kind of tell your story, whether it's a recruiter and kind of the problems that you solve, the placements that you've made. So it makes candidates and clients, it makes it easier for them to understand how you could help them. Same thing if you're looking to break into an industry, right?
Yeah.
I think sometimes you just got to like throw that out there and kind of put that on there. And but this is, I'm looking to kind of get in this industry, and here's why, like, here's what I've done, here's kind of why I think I'm a fit, and be able to just kind of connect, right, with leaders and people like yourself on the company side, but also just a really good agency recruiter, because you're going to know 20, 30, 40, 50 companies, where a company and a
Hmm.
recruiter, they can only really represent that one company too,
Right.
right? And like that's kind of
Right.
like the power of, if you're looking to break in, you can like connect with an agency recruiter like yourself that has the lobby network. Like, a lot of people, and right, I'm sure you got your start because someone saw like your work ethic and the personality, and like, yeah, like I think we got to give Kendy a shot, right? Like, because that's all you can give a shot. Like, it's not like there's a lengthy experience in the industry, so it's kind of just
Right.
that and that initiative. I tell people that all the time. Like, if I pick up on that, like, sure, I can give you a project or something to work on. Like, if you're gonna like take something and run with it, like that, you can always control that, right? If you're trying to like
Absolutely.
break in anything.
Yeah, and I think even our events, like we're trying to build a platform as well to help those individuals, and we've seen it time and time again in different cities that we have networking events. Again, that's not our mission, right? Our mission is truly to serve the industry and the reps that are in the industry. But
Yeah,
as a byproduct, there's always people trying to get in, and also on the flip side, there's always reps in those areas that are looking for junior reps, right? Looking for some help and that kind of up and coming person that wants to get into the industry. And so creating an environment where those two people can connect and have a drink or just talk and listen to speakers like that wasn't there before, right? I
right.
never had that chance to go into a room and introduce myself to 50 reps, right? So we're creating a platform now for those individuals to kind of to attend as well.
That's super cool. Yeah, that's really cool, and it's that's how you cultivate, right? Like, you cultivate like the best talent and people that are end up being loyal and hardworking because they're so appreciative of the opportunity. I mean, I think back to my own career, getting in initially when I got into the sports industry and then got into recruiting. I mean, it was people taking a shot on, a C plus student that didn't know anything.
Yeah,
Like, you know what, you got a good attitude, like you're willing to work hard, so like we'll give you a shot, right? And that's,
exactly.
you just keep having that approach. Like, you can find something. For me, it turned out to be recruiting. I still have no idea how, but like just kind of that attitude, that willingness. Like, it's great, but it was hard. I graduated in '09. It was, I remember like buying email addresses off some site to email every video coordinator in the NFL in college, hoping one of them would give me a shot. And
Yeah.
that's how I got my shot, right? I just was like, I just trying to beat down doors. It's so much easier now with LinkedIn, which I'm grateful, I'm happy for. Like, I want it to be easier for people to connect and kind of promote things and what you're doing. It's super cool. So
Well, thank you, thank you. We
yeah,
appreciate it.
yeah. How many cities have you had? Like,
I think we're live in 8 cities now.
okay,
In our first year, we're in
huh?
talks with another probably 4 or 5. So we're thinking maybe 10, 12 by the end of this year, to kind of
Oh,
be up and running. Which again, in our first year, is pretty exciting.
yeah,
We haven't,
absolutely.
we don't actively reach out to other individuals. It's not like we're spending money trying to market and bring people in. It's more so people that are seeing what we're doing and really want to be a part of it in their city and kind of be
Okay.
the one that helps bring it there
Wow.
and run events and connect people. So it's been really cool.
That's sweet. Yeah. Well, you gotta. I don't know how much medical sales is in Columbus, but you got to come out to Columbus. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, uh,
And that was a big scary thing, right? You talk about like building a company and taking that jump, right? When I was looking kind of over the ledge of like, hey, do I really step away from this 12-year career to build this company? And what if nobody, I remember my first event, I kind of booked the room and had the speaker and everything set up. And that night before, it's kind of in the back of your mind, like, what if nobody shows up? Like, what if
yeah.
nobody else wants this?
Yeah.
So it's been so just validating and reassuring, the number of people that continue to show up, the number of people that continue to reach out, want to help expand it and grow it. Like it's been a really cool process over the last year.
That's awesome, and that is a very real fear. I still battle with that sometimes. Something, if a new idea comes out or offering or like this podcast or content, like, well, no one listens, right? Or something,
Yeah.
talking into the void. So, but you have a history of kind of entrepreneurship in your family, And I think maybe that's what helped you kind of just like get over that, just kind of push forward, or like, yeah, talk to us kind of about that, like where that came from and kind of the desire to start your own company.
Yeah. This is, I've started another business. I was a rep in the Virgin Islands for a couple years,
Yeah.
incredible experience, and kind of started a boat company down there doing excursions. So that was kind of my first stab at entrepreneurship. That I think really kind of helped give me the confidence, like, hey, I've done this before, I can do it again.
Yeah.
But this time it was a little different because that was kind of a side project where this was like, all right, you're actually going to leave your career, right? You've built this successful career. You've been in this industry for a long time, and now you're going to start over in a new world. And so really hit some limiting beliefs, some fears, some anxieties. But thankfully, I had some really good coaches in my life. I'm a huge believer of having coaches and people to kind of help mentor you, guide you. And I had some really incredible people in my life to kind of help me through that transition. And really help take that first step. And I think once you take that first one, you just kind of keep going. But the first one's the scariest, is really jumping off that ledge into it full time.
Absolutely. Yeah. Obviously, I'm gonna, back you 100% on what we talk about with coaches and everything. Given what I do and what we do here, but I agree. I had coaches myself. Like 2018 when I dove into entrepreneurship, it's the first thing I did was sign up for a coaching program, learn from people that had already been doing it, learn from other people, in my shoes and kind of at different levels. And it starts to break down some, as you said, those self-limiting beliefs. And it's like, oh yeah, I don't know if I care what my friends and family say, or like I post content or anything like that. It's like, it's not that big of a deal, right?
Yeah.
It takes you out of it, and it's kind of like you link arms with other people that have kind of maybe a little further ahead than you, right? Or on the same plane. It's just like, that's like your community now. And it is so important, right, as a solo owner to find that, I think, as quickly as possible, because those thoughts, like, they're tough. Like, they'll come after you, the imposter syndrome, or you get comments
Yep.
on the internet, or people like, oh, you're doing that. Like, a lot of people don't understand entrepreneurship and like what you can do in the online space, right? There's still some kind of like, I don't know, there's a little stigma around it still, right? I think it's breaking
Yep.
through because of COVID, but it's still there,
Yep.
right? And it's like people at functions and family functions, like, so you're doing the internet recruiting thing still? Yeah, I am. So
Yeah.
it's I think it's funny, especially when you go from a career like I went from working for the Florida Gators, big time college football, and you go from medical sales, it's like a known industries, right? And kind of like
Mhm.
recruiting and networking and doing stuff on LinkedIn. It's like, it's just different, right? Like I think
Yeah.
and so there's only so many people that really get that experience, and it's important to create your own community, kind of your own tribe of that, like your
Absolutely.
support system. Yeah,
Absolutely. And building that team around you. I mean, you can't do it alone, right? I think you got to have a team around you, not only for the strategy, like you're talking about, right?
yeah,
But also the mental piece. Like
yes,
it's a grind, right? Entrepreneurship is not an easy path.
no,
And there's highs, there's lows. And I think having those people around you that can kind of keep you focused, keep you moving forward, and also, build strategies like you talk about to like really be effective at what you're doing.
absolutely.
And find somebody that's ahead of you to kind of pull you forward and can teach you some of the processes.
Absolutely. I mean, and within that, I guess we can kind of talk a little bit about kind of how you found me in the digital recruiter. Because I'm sure people are always kind of interested in that I talk to, like that start out like, well, when should I, do I need a coach? When should I use a coach? Does it make sense to? Do any of them actually know what they're doing? All
Right.
those people have all those questions. So, yeah, talk to us a little bit like kind of how you found me in the digital recruiter and kind of what was the thought process behind searching for something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I was very fortunate to get connected with you. At that stage, recruiting was becoming more and more important, right, in our business as we were growing. And I'm of the mindset like, if I'm going to do it, then let's be great at it, right? Let's don't just
Yes.
kind of step in and like really figure out this world, right? And so for me, believing in coaching, always having coaches in my life, we coach individuals. I was like, I need to go out and find somebody that's really been doing this and has a program that can coach me up and really help me develop systems and strategies in place to be as effective as possible in this world. And so I think it was originally on LinkedIn that we got connected. Had someone that recruiter that we worked with that had done the program, had nothing but incredible things to say. So decided to work with you, and am so thankful that we did. I mean, we've been able to implement strategies and systems in place, incorporate programs that we use now that, again, are just helped us be more effective, serve our clients better, faster, and also help our candidates as well.
I love it. I love it. So yeah, I mean, and I always tell people, like, you put in the work, right? And it was funny. Sometimes, like, I check in on you, like, how you doing? And like, you're like, oh, I've done this, this, and that. I'm like, oh, all right, like, sweet, like, and that's like, 'cause sometimes I can get like a little bit like a check in, or like, I'm like, I oversee everyone's shoulder, like, how's everyone doing? You're like, nope, I get it. I'm going to go implement, and I can
Yeah.
come back when I got a question. And I just had such respect for that process, like for the way you approached it in the beginning. You're like, nope, this makes sense. This is exactly how I'm going to use it. I'm going to go. And then you're like, I'm just on the phone all day now with all these people that like you help me get, like you help me find and connect with them. Like,
Yeah.
that's exactly how I want this thing to work. Right.
Right.
And then eventually you're like, hey, I want to talk about content. I'm like, great. Like, we talked about it. We set you up with Ross, our content coach. And that helped you kind of give some other ideas beyond just like, posting jobs and everything. Because I saw
Yeah.
that in your content, you're able to kind of start to mix up some of that, the kind of some of your stories, but also the jobs, and kind of really add, because you have a ton of, the personality and the network, like really be able to have that on there, right? So you really start to have like almost like a multi-layered approach, which is really cool to see. I mean, it kind of helps elevate, right, kind of your activity and what you were doing.
Yeah, you almost got to be careful what you wish for sometimes. You turn on the floodgate, your
Yeah.
phones won't stop ringing. But
Yeah.
it's a great problem. And again, I don't think we could have gotten, or I know we wouldn't be where we are today without the program. It certainly helped us kind of take that next step in the business and continue to take steps forward as we grow, finding ways to get content like you talk about out there, let people know what we're doing, how we're doing it, why we're doing it. I think all that's really important.
Yeah.
So yeah, extremely
Awesome.
grateful.
Well, I appreciate that. Oh, I'm grateful for you. So, the what I want to talk about the in that realm, and I think when you first joined, we talked about like you started this really with partnerships, right? Like, hey, I'm going to get my feet wet with placing candidates while I figure out kind of how to maybe get my own clients, right? And kind of really building that revenue from just like, okay, I can control this and I can make that happen as I'm learning some of the business development. You have an extensive sales background, but it is a different beast in recruiting to kind of get clients and good clients in recruiting. How were you able to kind of leverage partnerships in the beginning to kind of help build that runway and really kind of build a solid foundation?
Yeah, absolutely. I think partnerships are the quickest way to ramp up, right?
Yeah.
Find someone that's been doing it, is currently doing it, has been doing it for a long time. Plug in with them. Again, finding someone that can coach you, mentor you through that process. I was fortunate enough to partner with Fall Staff Search, a recruiting firm that's been doing it for over 30 years. Hillary Trader, who runs that organization, who personally I think has got 17 years in the recruiting industry. So partnering with her, really helped ramp me up as far as that goes. Working with some of her clients that were already in place, while we also started to develop our own clients through the lobby. So that was definitely a huge catalyst in our growth.
It's so smart, And sometimes I've worked with top recruiters that are hesitant with the partnerships, but yet they're stuck. Maybe like they're trying to figure out how to get their own clients. I'm like, if you can at least get the candidates, like you're in the ball game, right? And if you're in the game and you're at least working on recs and submittals and interviews, like you're gonna pick up on things, and you're gonna pick up on things that you could utilize for your own clients and when you sell and like get better. So it's like just get in the game however you can, right? Kind of just, like I said, throw the kitchen sink at it in a sense. Like get on the calls, like learn as much as you can, qualify the roles, learn from other managers and owners, and just get there and like build that runway, right? And just have always kind of candidates in motion. It kind of builds that confidence when you start selling. Like, yeah, I know candidates. I have a network. I'm putting people to work. Like, otherwise, if you're just starting from scratch, it's really hard to sell your services. You're like, well, I might be able to go find that person versus like, oh yeah, I got 10, 15, 20 of those people in the back pocket, right? It's
Yeah.
like a lot easier. It kind of just works hand in hand. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, again, my whole mission focus is the medical sales rep. So no matter if that rep reaches out in Charleston, South Carolina, or somewhere in California or Texas. Like, I want to be able to help them, right?
Yeah.
And so by creating those partnerships and extending my network, I'm able to help more people. And so that was a big piece of kind of going out and say, hey, how do we expand our reach and be able to help more people?
Absolutely. I love it. So what is next for the Lobby Network?
Yeah, so here it's continuing to grow. Like, how do we continue to expand our network, right? So we're continuing to expand into other cities throughout the country. So we've built out systems now for those leaders that come on board. So if someone from a new city reaches out and says, "Hey, I'd love to help you launch this in Chicago," right? Great, we've got a system and a program in place to kind of really give you all the tools and resources. We've brought on social media people. Manager. We've got a VA now, systems implementer. So a lot of people that can kind of take that load off and make it as easy as possible for them to get up and running in their city as far as the networking piece goes. And then working and expanding our recruiter network, right? So we've got other recruiters that we're working with, other firms, other agencies that have opportunities with great companies. So again, being able to serve our community on the job side, building out coaching programs. We brought on a new sales coach recently that's very passionate about helping individuals in this industry with sales coaching. So just again, how many ways can we serve our client, which again is the medical sales route?
I mean, we don't even cover this, but just like your niche and you own your niche, and I think there's
Yeah.
a ton of power in that because you've been able to build a brand and credibility and a solid reputation very quick because you had that niche and had that vertical. So I mean, anyone listening, if you're gonna have that, own it, like lead
Yeah.
into it, own it, and it can bring really fulfilling work. It can get you kind of that freedom, that autonomy. Because I know you've been bouncing around, right? South Carolina and Colorado, and now I think
Yeah.
you got like a road trip lined up. I mean, it's like it's just I think opened so many doors. It sounds like just like we're exactly the path like you want it to be because you just owned the niche and you owned your experience. And you're like, I'm just gonna solve this problem, right? And then
Right.
you start to solve more problems within that vertical, but like it starts there, right? Versus kind of I can recruit anything. It's like, oh, this is what I'm gonna do,
Exactly.
right? And it's had like look at the impact it's had. It's been crazy.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of value there, right? Really niching down and owning your space. And hey, this is what we're good at. This is what I know. This is where my experience is.
Yeah.
I was this person for 12, 13 years, and I want to serve anybody else that's in those shoes. And like you said, there's really no company that's doing it. There is no organization right now. So really building a brand around that and say, hey, we're going to be that company. We're going to put our flag down and we're going to serve this community and whatever we can do to help them. We're going to build programs around it.
I love it. I mean, you're the positioning, everything. I mean, it is to the T. I think what we preach in the digital recruiter community, and so it's awesome to see. Kendy, where if people want to get into medical sales, if they're in medical sales and maybe looking for the next jump and move in the career, where can they find you?
Yeah, so I'd say a great place to start is LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn. It's Kendy Elmore, Kendy Elmore, Elmore. If you want to learn more about the company, it's thelobbynetwork.com. There you can find all our resources. You can find out about events happening, and it's just a great place to start.
Awesome. Well, we'll have all the links to the email, excuse me, to your LinkedIn, to your website, and the bio, kind of wherever you're listening to this on. So that'll be on there or our Podbean page too. So definitely reach out to Kendy if you're interested in kind of medical sales and looking to kind of get into that. It can obviously be a very fruitful career and path, and Kendy will definitely point you in the right direction. And if you're a medical sales rep, reach out to him. Even if you're just interested in kind of learning what's out there, right, or just go to an event, right? It's a great way to kind of meet people and be network and kind of stay in touch with everything. So awesome. Well, Kendy, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, taking the time, kind of sharing a really cool story. I really appreciate it, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Again, it was a pleasure to be in the program. It certainly helped take our organization to the next level. And it's been nothing but a pleasure working with you. So thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. I appreciate all that. I'm excited to continue to see your growth. right, in the company. So
Awesome.
all right. Well, that'll be it for this episode of the Digital Recruiter Podcast. Stay tuned for more episodes. Thanks again to Kendy for having us. Until next time, happy hunting, guys.